Our history is rife with pain and suffering, full of tragedy. I implore you, come and explore this dark world of ours. August 10th of the year 2000, Russia's naval fleet was doing training practice in the Barents Sea, one of their first few exercises since the collapse of the Soviet Union. 30 ships and 3 submarines were participating in the exercise. Most ships weren't licensed to carry weaponry in peacetime, though the Kursk was different. It was the pride and joy of the motherland, as large as 2 jets with a crew of 119 people, having been recently cited for being one of the best crew in the Northern Fleet. It was one of the best performing nuclear-powered submarines of its time, considered unsinkable, and we all know how true that title is. The tests they were running required dummy warheads to be fired at participating ships and submarines. During the loading of these dummy warheads, actual torpedoes inside the Kursk would be dropped, and according to witnesses, they would start leaking fuel. But commanding officials ignored this, for the operation was of top priority and needed to be conducted on time. On the third day of exercises, the crew of the Kursk would load a dummy warhead to be fired at the flagship of the Russian Navy, Peter the Great. It would never fire, though. An explosion happened inside the cabin. Hydrogen peroxide leaking from inside one of the torpedoes caused an explosion, which started a chain reaction. A second explosion happened shortly thereafter, torpedoes going off with 2 tons of TNT behind it. The force was so strong that a neighboring ship weighing over 28,000 tons shook violently. The submarine would sink, plummeting 300 feet below sea level. One would think rescue efforts would start immediately for such an event, but this was not the case. The exercise continued as normal, even though all communications with the Kursk were lost. One thing to remember is that there are dozens upon dozens of miles between the ships during this practice. While some might have felt the explosion, no one might have seen it. Even then, a small explosion could have easily just been passed off as part of the proceedings. The submarine was lost, and a search mission was conducted the day of its disappearance. A small rescue submarine would reach the Kursk, but wouldn't have enough fuel to get there and back with passengers. Meanwhile, the Russian government was doing its best to conceal information from the public, stating that the exercise was conducted superbly. Other governments would offer helping hands as soon as they realized something was wrong with the Kursk submarine. They would all be turned down. A rescue operation is well underway and everything is under control. But for the 23 men under the sea, nothing was under control. They were awaiting rescue that would never come. All of them pooled in the 9th compartment of the submarine, trapped in a cramped environment that was leaking water at a steady pace. Theoretically, they could escape, but over how much pressure they were under, putting on an air mask and floating to the surface was just as risky, if not more risky, than waiting for rescue. Hours would pass and oxygen would become a scarcity. The crew needed to change out the air filter. They used chemical canisters to do this that contained potassium superoxide. It would clean the air of carbon dioxide and replace it with oxygen. There's one problem with them though. They react violently to water, heating up like a miniature furnace. One of the crew members likely dropped the canister, and with the great heat coming from it, it would mix with the oily water and light up the inside of the submarine. Those who didn't die by burning to death would suffer from asphyxiation, as the last of the oxygen would be burnt away. This all happened in the span of 6 hours after the submarine sank. Days after the sinking of the Kursk, the Russian government would finally allow help from foreign governments, but under strict stipulations. Still, it was all for naught. The Russian government was put under a lot of heat after the Kursk incident, misinforming the public about the status of the submarine and the crew, lying about the means of which it had sunk, and refusing help for days on end from other governments. Worst of all, a grieving mother was sedated after yelling at a public official. She was outraged at the misinformation provided by the government. A year after the accident, a Dutch company was hired to raise the submarine. After the submarine was raised from the bottom of the ocean, all of the deceased were hauled out and identified. All but 3. Their remains were so charred and mangled that the 3 men remain unidentified to this day. The submarine itself was torn apart for scrap. Hey guys, thanks for watching another one of my videos. Sorry for the short delay between this one and the last one. I've been working on some other personal projects of mine, which will hopefully come to fruition sometime next year. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. All of those small YouTube things help in the long run, and they're all greatly appreciated. As always, you'll find all the music linked in the description below. Until next time, stay safe and have a wonderful day.